Today we're traveling back to a time where Iran took the world's center stage. But first, let's meet our key player, Mohammad Reza Shah Pahlavi. Wondering how one person could shape such a seismic event? Well, he played a pivotal role in the Iran hostage crisis. And if you thought that was just a minor hiccup in the world of diplomacy, boy, do we have a story for you. This was the kind of cliffhanger that made the whole world shift in its seat, like a binge-worthy Netflix series you can't stop watching. Now, while 1979 had its fair share of historic moments, including the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan and the 3 Mile Island nuclear accident, it was the Iran hostage crisis that had people on the edge of their seats. In this episode, we're going to shine a spotlight on the enigmatic figure that was the Shah and uncover the intricacies of his reign, his relationship with the United States, and how all of this led to one of the most significant international crises of the 20th century. Welcome to Asia Obscura. Before we begin, please like, share and subscribe for more obscure Asian stories. First, let's unravel the story of how the Shah of Iran rose to power. It was 1941, and the world was embroiled in World War II. As Iran grappled with the departure of their monarch, a new chapter was about to unfold. In 1941, the British and the Soviets installed young Mohammad Reza Shah Pahlavi on the peacock throne, with hopes that he'd be a cooperative and a pliable leader. But the Shah wasn't exactly everyone's cup of tea. His rule wasn't all sunshine and rainbows, it was shrouded in accusations. His infamous secret police, the Savak, was known to terrorize, torture and even kill those who opposed the regime. While the Shah's power was growing, so was the opposition within Iran. Dissenters from all walks of life, from students to religious leaders, started rallying against the monarchy. And as the years went by, the resentment against the Shah's regime swelled. People craved a change, and that change was right around the corner. And then there's the religious factor, Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini, a name that would go down in history, was leading the charge. He had a powerful message and was the spiritual fuel that kept the revolution's fire burning. Khomeini had a vision, an Iran that was free from foreign influence and built on its own terms. This wasn't just about political change, it was a religious awakening. Back to the Shah. His health was more like a teeter-totter on the edge. So what's a Shah to do when he's got a health crisis? Well, he decided he needed the best medical care he could get. And where better to get that than in the good old United States? Now, you'd think that getting the Shah into the US for medical care would have been a straightforward affair, right? Think again. He needed urgent medical treatment, and in his quest for the best care, he turned to the United States Embassy in Tehran. Now this is where it gets interesting. President Jimmy Carter agreed to admit the Shah into the embassy for medical purposes. To some, it might have seemed like a humane and straightforward decision, but the reality was far more complex. You see, this act of providing refuge to the ailing Shah didn't sit well with the Iranian revolutionaries and the public. They viewed it as an affront to the Iranian sovereignty and a glaring symbol of US interference in their internal affairs. Iranian militants had been itching for a long time to get their hands on the US embassy, and today was their moment. They saw it as the ultimate way to show their anger and make a point. So with a crowd of 3,000 protesters knocking at the door, they stormed the US embassy. The motley crew, a mix of students and militants, used bolt cutters to break into the compound. At first, the plan was non-violent, a symbolic occupation meant to last a few days. Talk about an understatement. You know, it's an interesting situation when you've got Marines guarding the embassy, trained to protect it with force, but don't resort to it. I mean, this was the perfect storm. The militants read it as a sign, and in the blink of an eye, they overran the embassy and captured 52 Americans. The US embassy was officially under siege, and the hostages were blindfolded and paraded before the press. Khomeini himself called it the Second Revolution. The embassy in his eyes was an American spy den in Iran. Talk about a crisis on steroids. One day after the hostages were taken, Iran cancelled all defense treaties with the US, and a few days later, Khomeini's government officially assumed power. The Iranian government held the hostages as bargaining chips, demanding that the US deport the Shah. The Carter administration was in a bind. They couldn't meet that demand, so they started playing hardball. Economic sanctions, freezing assets, and a whole diplomatic dance ensued. To make matters more intense, President Carter, exasperated by the failed negotiations, gave the green light for a daring rescue mission, Operation Eagle Claw, they called it. Sounds like something out of a Hollywood action film, am I right? But as fate would have it, the mission didn't go as planned. Poor weather and mechanical failures thwarted their efforts. The helicopters couldn't communicate and the rescue mission turned into a tragic disaster, resulting in the loss of American lives. The failed mission only bolstered the Iranian government position, and the hostages remained in captivity. In the end, the release of the hostages is negotiated through a neutral party, a diplomat from Algeria. The two countries agreed on a set of terms, with the hostages' freedom secured in exchange for certain concessions by the US. And there you have it, the tale of Mohammad Reza Shah Pahlavi and the Iran hostage crisis, a story that has left a deep scar on modern geopolitics. Now as for the Shah, his journey didn't end with the hostage takeover. A series of travels and seeking medical treatment, he ultimately found exile in Egypt, where he spent his final days. But what lingers is that enduring legacy of mistrust between the United States and Iran, rooted in these tumultuous events. The echoes of the past continue to shape our world today, and perhaps someday we'll uncover more secrets from this fascinating chapter in history. Who knows? Maybe that's a story for another time. Thank you for tuning in to Asia Obscura. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And if you have your own stories to share or topics you'd like us to explore, please feel free to comment below. Until next time, stay curious, stay passionate, and stay tuned.